Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
So you didn't do any work, you didn't prepare anything, Patrick? Is that what you're saying? You're just sloughed off? Okay,
No, I learned from the best.
yeah.
Josie is back to the podcast. He's wearing a We Can tracksuit, which I was very dumb. I didn't see the pun in
Mm.
that. It's a Canadian tracksuit. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. When I was sort of producer and host of Indie Can Radio, whenever we did live events, we were looking for, things to support, and one of them was amateur athletes in Canada. And we put on a big show at Jeff Healy's nightclub. Some great independent music, the best music you've never heard, and
Mhm.
had some athletes there as well. And I got still have a sweatshirt out of the deal.
Is Je
Athletes can.
is Jeff Healy, is
Mm.
that the Roadhouse guy that we've discussed before?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah, yeah. I used to bring my son there when he was in high school to perform with the house band on Wednesday nights. And I was a bad influence to some of his classmates as well. I'd, tuck them into a booth and order Cokes for everybody. And
Mhm.
the joke was they all looked old enough to Jeff because he's a blind guitar player.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Stevie Wonder jokes and Jeff Healy jokes, interchangeable. You
Yeah,
can use them.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the Rubik's Cube. Is this it? Is this it? Is this
Yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Hey, Joe, I haven't asked you much about your son. Like, is he one of us? Does he do this type of work with
No,
you? Or?
both of my kids were born in sobriety and already in their 30s have exhibited the fact that they don't seem to have this gene, right? Because I never made it. So both of their parents are, have addiction, but I guess environment overcame, um,
Mhm.
genealogy in
Mhm.
this case so far, right?
Yep.
Wow, that's so cool. They're in their 30s, huh?
Yeah.
So you kind of they're in the pond now, fully kind of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I am a geezer. I, uh, I forget I'm not 30, but whenever I'm celebrating one of their birthdays, it's weird, but true.
I think we are 30 until somebody calls us sir or something like that. We do feel like the young. I feel like these young people's young adults peer. And I forget sometimes, even as a therapist, that that's not how they see me.
Yeah.
Because they have no, we have a part of us that's 30 because we've been there. It's and they don't have a part of them that's 70 because they haven't been there. And it's like, and they have a different idea for that. But it is something I have to actually remind myself of sometimes because we say that not just we say it as a joke, but it's like really don't think of myself as not a peer to this 40 something year old person I'm talking to.
Here's a good emotional sobriety story. I'm coming home from work, so like I feel like a young person. I'm in my 60s. I still play softball in a league. Not super competitive. No, none of us are
Mhm.
being drafted into the major
Mhm.
leagues or anything. But I still, I'm not a liability to the team, and
Mhm.
I'm active, but I'm coming home from work. I'm getting off the subway, hopping on the bus, and it's a crowded bus, and I'm holding on to the little, rail above and
Mhm.
just minding my own business. And a teenager pops up out of his seat and looks at me. What?
Mhm.
And then he looks down at the seat and he looks back at me. I go, what? And I realize he's offering me a seat.
Mhm.
And it won't surprise you that my immediate instinct was to say something really snotty to him.
Mhm.
And
No, I get
but
it.
that pause between stimulation and response, a little bit of emotional sobriety came in, and I appreciated the fact that he's been raised to be polite and courteous and thoughtful. And I wanted to reinforce that. And I said, "Thank you very much, young man." And I sat in the seat, felt super uncomfortable about it, but I think I did the right thing.
That's great. I love it. I did a short presentation for a group of students at Vanderbilt not long ago. It's not very near my office. I had a similar experience because it was at night, and I had a little trouble finding the meeting room and that kind of stuff, and it was raining. It was really a bad weather day, and I noticed at the end there were two of these young people that had asked me to come in and do this stuff, and I've noticed, and they were awfully close to me. They were walking, a young man and a young woman, and they were just kind of hovering. And we started walking, so I started walking out and go back to my car, and I realized they were walking me out. They were being protective of me. It's like it's like, and I really became aware when we got out there in the rain and stuff like that. I just watched them with that new awareness and realized, oh my God, they're having a totally different experience than I'm having. And I did like you did. I just let that happen, because I had that offended moment. I used to tell people when they call me sir to please don't do that. And then what I realized was I was actually asking them to get rid of their good manners that their parents had instilled in them.
Yeah.
So when somebody calls me sir, that's fine. I can do that. It's my talk about emotional sobriety. I want to put that on them. It's my discomfort of being seen as that elder in that moment. It's not their problem.
We'll talk about the grass is always greener. I get jealous of the older folks and the women who get the seats, and I get jealous of the senior discount on movie tickets when my dad goes with me. I'm
There
just
you
like,
go.
you
That's the
motherfucker.
thing. That's the thing. And that
Coming
and here
faster than you think, Patrick.
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. Just any day now, really. Maybe I could pass.
Well,
I could do the Rick Baker makeup transformation, and I can go and get
yeah.
$10 off my ticket.
Well, the here in the States, the big thing about getting older is 65, man. It's like Joe, you won't have had that experience, but my life changed radically at 65 when I got Medicare, when I actually had health care coverage that didn't cost me, half my fucking salary, to do that. And when I went to the doctors, I went through this whole cancer thing last fall.
Yeah.
Nobody asked me for a dime ever.
Yeah. Amazing.
It was amazing. It was like, I mean, I don't know if you would even get it, Joe, but it's like, I mean, not only were there not bills coming in all over the place at different times, it's just like nobody even mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
amazing.
it's a little bit
It's the way
like
it should be.
yeah, it's like you get to the end of the marathon and then they bring you like a cup of cool lemonade at the end. It's like after all that, you finally get to the yeah.
And I keep bringing it. It's like,
Right.
keep them coming. You set them up, I'll knock them back. Be sure they're
Uh,
lemonade. So
yeah, of course, you gotta be vigilant about that. But let's just go around real quick before getting to the meat of the subject. How's everybody's emotional sobriety today?
talking to my dog today. That's my day so far. I am going to a memorial service for one of my best friends later today. They're calling it a party, which I appreciate. He asked everybody to wear bright colors, so we're doing that. And he was 77 years old, so it's the way I say it is sad event, happy celebration. So that's what. But I'm actually looking forward to that. Talk about age. At our age, this is one of the places like we used to see all our old friends at weddings, things like that. Now I see all my old friends at memorial services. It's a little reunion. It's kind of good to see people.
Which has better food?
Actually, these have better food.
Um,
You
how do
know, I
you
don't know I don't know if it's Canadian, but in America, certainly in Texas, where I grew up, in the southern states, it's like somebody dies and the food just comes. It just shows up on your doorstep over and over and over again. It's amazing to watch that. Yeah.
so does a depression come with this kind of stuff, or like how are you dealing with that?
Sadness, come things that are associated with grief, but No, not depression. Actually, Vince and I, we formed a group of our, he experienced, probably worse than I did. Chronic depression through the years, and we were good support for each other, and we had on the same place politically. So we formed a breakfast group one time, just the two of us, called the Progressive Depressives. And I made a very sad logo for it. It was really nice. It was stormy cloud and everything. It's but
You got room for one more?
Listen, yeah, we probably do, because our one story now we have one. I'm the only member now, so yeah, I'll talk to him. But the no, we had one other fellow that was a friend of ours, my friend Bendel, and he definitely qualified for progressive depressive, and so we invited him in, and so the very next Saturday he was coming, he was going to come, and he didn't show up, and we kept texting him, and found out he died before he got there. He dropped dead in his apartment. So it's like, it seemed like a good story to add to the progressive depressives. Sometimes we don't even make it to the meeting,
How
but
about you?
it's different than you think. I mean, or different than I thought. Losing friends, it's kind of just on the day to day that I miss people. I just, it's not even at the moment of that happening. I just walk around sometimes. I'm just aware of how many of my very good friends at this point are no longer, breathing air and on the earth with us. So it's sad. And, but I tell you what, I don't stop talking to them, and I've never deleted one of every time I have one of these folks who die, I say, I don't touch the text thread. So with Vince is a good example. I have at least a year-long text thread of what we've been saying, everything from the bizarre, stupid things we say to something that might even be interesting and profound. So and I have, it's just, I don't know how it is. What's it like for you, Joey? I'm sure you've lost some friends too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it alters the relationship when they can't
That's
talk back, but it doesn't end it, you know? And
I love you. What I tell people people die, relationships don't. And
yeah.
it's like, I love that. But I did have somebody say something that's similar to what you said. They said, well, it changes the relationship a lot. And I go, I give you that, it does. You know,
Yeah, I have been like emotional sobriety for me isn't about being happy, joyous, and free every moment of the day. It's being
mhm.
real, being like,
Yes.
sort of tapped into what is going on for me. I had a long car ride. I drove out to Phoenix and back, and I listened to, I'm back in psychotherapy doing some sort of early work, toxic shame, internal family system. So I listened to Dick Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, in its entirety while
Hmm.
I was driving. It was amazing. And the International Conference of Secular AA, which is in Orlando, September 20th to 22nd, one of our speakers has a book called Trauma and the 12 Steps. So I listened to that in its entirety. And I used to try to shun bad feelings. If I felt um, remorse or I felt
Hmm.
grief or I felt um, anger, I tried to repress it. And and now I just let it be. I don't let it go. I just let it be, right? Just,
Hmm.
no bad parts, right? No bad
Hmm.
feelings. And I also am feeling a lot of love and joy. I was in Savannah. We'll talk about that in a
Hmm.
minute, I guess,
Hmm.
with this workshop I was doing. And just, that was, a wonderful, awe-filled experience for sure. So it's been, uh, an exhausting emotional week or two.
When we're that judgmental of our feelings, good feelings, bad feelings, that kind of stuff, and it's amazing how many people still use those terminologies, even people that should know better. I think it's a
Mhm.
good feeling or a bad feeling. No, it's a feeling. It's like, but the twist on that is the feelings that we're most uncomfortable with, we end up storing up. We become constipated with those feelings. Like if I'm totally uncomfortable with anger, then I'm walking around, what do we know about me? I'm an angry man. If it's like, it really is that the paradoxical thing is, go toward it. We're always talking to people, move toward it. And I love this distinction you're saying between, it's really a step up from letting it go is to let it be.
Great Paul
Well,
McCartney song too.
I know
yeah.
it. Yep. Yep.
Well, I'll very briefly check in. I relate to you, Tom, because last night I was getting a touch of the sads, and so
Hmm.
I got into cleaning. I made sure the kitchen
Hmm.
was immaculate before I went to bed, and it helped a little bit. I packed my suitcase for a trip I have coming up. I've been thinking not about the friends I've lost, but there's a friend I'm worried about losing who's he's a rageaholic. He's been trying. I think he's been earnestly trying for like the last few months to get better. And by that I mean going to some groups, kind of like, bringing different kind of head doctors into the mix. And I can only imagine like what it must be like inside his head. It's like a tough thing to corral. I mean, with my isms, the drugs, the alcohol, there's a very observable thing that you can kind of like focus on eliminating from your diet. And that can at least be a start towards getting well. But with him, it's a little bit more complicated. And yeah, I just found myself like he had a big blow up at work, and had would like to get a ride home. I'm several hours away drive, so I couldn't really come by and get him. I think I've mentioned this friend of mine on the podcast before, and I've mentioned this idea before of like I just wish recovery was something you could give to somebody, but that's not how it
Hmm.
works. And it's just very sad. Like I sometimes I can get that little twinkle in my eye that you see from other like, longtime recovery people, that kind of knowledge that good things will come to him, and he will figure it all out, and that puzzle piece will snap into place. But I'm also just very concerned that like, gee, maybe that might not happen, before he gets behind the wheel of a car. And anyway, it's just it's I think about it. It's sad.
What Joe's saying, that frustration is, that's a real feeling. You let it be. It's like it's part, you know, part of that. Roger on Thursday night talks about that all the time. Is like when we have a response. Humans, we experience things in layers, and it's like, so we have a response, and then we have a response about our response. And of course, then we have a response about our response about our response, and it's like, accept it. I just try to go as accept as far out as I can go on those concentric circles. It's like, if I'm beating when I have, if I'm beating myself up, you could identify with this one, Patrick. If I beat myself up, then I find myself learning about that. So I beat myself up for beating myself up. Well, I need to start accepting at that third layer out. It's a lot more likely to be successful to begin with, to accept that there I am beating myself up, rather than beating myself up for beating myself up. So that, and to this day, it's like, I mean, that's part of what the internal family system stuff is. I think I'm not an expert on it, but I know in terms of my part stuff, my part intrapersonal stuff, it's always about acceptance. It's always about, looking for where we're judging, where our bigotry, our personal bigotry comes in. The codependency is if you get caught up and begin to feel responsible for that. We'll start pulling on the rope around your waist if you do that. But what I'm hearing you talk about is you're just a good man who cares about his friend and wishing him the best. And realistically, like what Joe was talking about emotional sobriety, is about realism. Everybody doesn't make it out. It is scary.
Yeah, I mean, he is a good man, and like I relate so much to his earnest desire to get better, but like his confusion and like kind of his resistance to kind of like doing what can feel like, when you're an addicted person, like taking out the mechanism that's driving you to these self-destructive places. It almost feels like you're ripping your own skeleton out. Like it's the thing that like it's the
Hmm.
lens through which you've seen most of your life. and you've got to like adjust that lens, or you got to swap that lens out. And it's really scary. And like, and it's like, it makes no sense at first. You know, it only makes sense
No,
in hindsight.
it's an understatement to call it an identity crisis. I mean, but you know, it's an identity crisis on steroids. It's like we all have those stories about when we made these whatever changes they may be. They may be about drugs and alcohol. There may be other things, but we made changes in our lives big enough to where there were these places where you know we're talking about letting go. You know, the damn universe apparently is set up that you know that you have to let go before something else is going to come in there. You know, the old law of the vacuum. It's like, I always hated that. It's like, okay, well, you know, as soon as the universe sends me something to replace this with, I'll be glad to put it down. And the challenge, as far as I can tell, seems to go, no, you put it down first. You know, you put it down, and you know, I always tell that story of the trapeze artist that I had as a client who talked about what it was like to let go. She was the flyer, and the other guy was the catcher. What it was like to let go and wait for that guy to grab her wrists, you know. And she said this ridiculous thing, which I always remember, where she said, "When I let go, I stay perfect. I reach out, stretch out as far as I can, and I stay perfectly still." Now, because I remember that moment when she told me that, because my guy in my head was going like, "That's bullshit," because she's not perfectly still. The only time you can be in midair and perfectly still is if you're a cartoon. You know, it's like they do that, but no, you're falling at that point. You know, but for her, it was perfectly still, and it was complete trust. And I use that as a model for me, and have never come. I don't think I've ever come close to emulating it, but I will continue to use that as a model till the day I'm not here. So when you've had an experience like that, then you have an experiential basis for self empathy. The idea is, okay, I've let something go before where I remember not thinking there was anything else there. I remember when I quit drinking, my mantra was, I've got nothing. You know, I didn't think I was ever going to have a personality again. I didn't ever think I was going to say anything funny again. I didn't think I had an intelligent thought in my mind. And I mean, and that was really the experience. I really thought there was nothing there. And it's like, so throughout my career of recovery, that's been very helpful, because when I've come, and I've never been to one that's that extreme, but when I've come to places where I really needed to take these huge leaps, or what felt like huge leaps to me, I could remember that experience of, you know, what I believed at the time turned out not to be true. Got to know when not to trust yourself.
That completely speaks that identity component, and the transition between, uh, addiction and recovery is one of the 5 components I was talking about in Savannah at Recovery Day, which is called the CHIME principle. And what where that came from was Mary Leamy was looking at studies of people originally with mental health disorders who come out the other side thriving. Because so much of it is pathologized, and so many practitioners see them as, uh, you know, being in constant need of medicine and labeling. And she was looking at, let's take a look at the handful of people that do better than ever and see what their characteristics are, and then model our care in accordance with these things. And one of them is identity. So CHIME stands for connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment. And that was 2011. And then in 2015, a guy named David Best, who studies recoveries from alcohol and other substances, um, brought this model into what he was doing. I first saw him speak in 2017 at the Recovery Capital Conference in Calgary, Alberta. And that's where I was introduced to this concept. And connection, we've all heard the Johan Hari TED Talk, where he finishes his talk by saying the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, the opposite of addiction is connection. And, standing ovation, everyone goes crazy because they know what he's talking about. Um, hope, hope is not something that we have to bring. It's contagious. We catch hope from other
Hmm.
people modeling pro-social behavior, not antisocial behavior, but recovery, who model emotional sobriety. We get our hope from them. And then when we get it from them, we're contagious too, and other people will pick it up from us. That's why someone with 4 weeks sobriety can be the most important person in the room to someone with 4 days sobriety, because
Hmm.
like no one's coming here signing up for the 4 decade plan, right? That's like
Right.
consecutive life sentences. They're not so sure about that, but someone with 4 weeks sobriety, tell me how you do it, man. Like it seems unimaginable. So that hope is something that we get from being connected to a group of peers in recovery, right? So we get it
Yeah.
from other people. And then identity, I mean, Tom just hit it out of the park, right? We go from that rock and roller persona where I'm bad, I'm a rebel, I'm the party animal, no one's going to stop me, identity, to an identity of recovery, of sober second thought, of emotional sobriety, of somehow, that for us personally, recovery is not an obligation because I've hurt people I love and I'm an addict, so I'm sentenced to sobriety, but a wonderful new way to live life, doing it sober, as we say in Canada.
A.
And then meaning, well, there's a lot of meaning that comes from, like no matter how far down the path we've gone, we see how our experiences can help others. The things that were the cause of such great shame all of a sudden become our calling card to help other people, lift them up from where they're at.
Mhm.
That's amazing. We either go back to our life and find, what we love, what we're good at, what in the world needs to be done, what we can be paid for, right? And find meaning in
Yeah.
our life. And if we've burned all those bridges, we can find meaning in recovery, just sort of carrying the message and sort of living in recovery. And then empowerment, right? Even people who use the language powerless over alcohol, that's a temporary state. In fact, the wording is in past tense. We were powerless. Our
Mhm.
lives had become unmanageable, and CHIME is an asset-based approach to recovery, not a deficit based approach to
Mhm.
recovery.
Mhm.
And it isn't a newer, better way of looking at recovery than a 12-step model. It's just the way academics have observed us, what they see. These are the 5 characteristics they see in us. And I think emotional sobriety speaks to, connection, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment, because, that's what I hear on this podcast. Well, I've listened to every episode. I hear it every
Mhm.
time. I feel it every time.
Love this because it kind of outlines what we have to look forward to once we get to a place of better emotional sobriety.
And it
I
explains
want,
all sobriety, like everybody's,
yeah.
whether it's an eightfold path or a 12-step program or cognitive behavioral therapy. Not everyone joins a group to get sober, but nobody gets sober alone. We need,
Right.
a community to lean on.
Right. It's what I mean. Two things. One is you're you're just talking to my heart here when you say, because I believe I believe if I had to say the biggest problem humans have is like that's a big thing, uh, but it's polarization.
Yeah.
And we can see it's easy. We can sit here and easily make that argument with the political stuff, but it's everywhere and it's in everything. It's like the polarization means and the way it gets into this stuff subtly is exactly what you said. I've noticed this since I've been at least aware enough to be writing about this stuff, is when somebody, the people I don't trust are somebody that comes out and says, I have a new thing. It's like you don't have a new thing. It's like now you can have a new perspective, and because what what I get is what you're saying, Joe, is if we all have these conversations where we respect that we're all it's all a thing, and we're looking at it from different ways. I go, hey Joe, come over here and look from this angle, and
Yeah.
I'm down on the floor looking up at something. You go, okay, I got to get down there to do it. Yeah, I got on down here.
Yeah.
It's like you go and you look at it, and maybe you don't see it, but probably you do if I show it to you the right way. You go like, oh yeah, I never thought about that. It's like, and that's where I always tell people, you're not in a polarized community when you hear people say that particular sentence. Oh, I never thought about it that way. It's like you'll never hear a politician say that to another politician.
Yeah.
Ever, ever. And it's like, I mean, and that's the extreme that we can use as a model to go away from. But I love the idea that what you're saying is this: you bring all of this in, and it's just more understanding, and we don't, because this is about not taking it personally. One of our favorite things to talk about in emotional sobriety, when somebody comes in and does something differently, I definitely have had that reflex, and I can have that reflex today, which is defensive. Like, wait a minute, I feel like they're saying my way is wrong. Place between stimulus and response again. It's like, no, take a minute, Tom, and realize no, they're not saying that. And bottom line, if they are saying that, then that's really their problem anyway. It's like I'm not here to win that argument because I don't want to have an argument like that. But mostly when we're having these conversations, that's not what's being said. That's just what somebody's telling you. They're telling you what it looks like from where they're standing.
So connection, hope, identity, meaning, empowerment. So is that like a succession of things? Like you start with one and you end with the other?
You can see where the hope comes from the connection.
Right. It does seem, yeah,
Uh, but
progressive.
uh, but I don't think these are, you know, these steps are written in an order for a reason type of approach. Some people would say identity, that you have to at least picture yourself as potentially being a case worth saving before,
Yeah.
joining a community or being part of a recovery community as possible.
You know, my
Well,
my little nerd brain perked up when you were talking about hope being contagious. And I've told Tom about this. I love Superman, and
Yeah.
I really love that movie Man of Steel about Superman because what's so brilliantly written in the screenplay is that everybody, all the characters, it's a big ensemble, start to become Superman because he takes those first kind of self-effacing, humble steps, selfless, I should say.
Mhm.
Um, and it's you don't hang out in a barbershop if you don't want to get a haircut. I feel like if you tend to show up in these communities, where people are doing something that works and, they're living their lives in a healthier, more loving way. If you stick around long enough, people do tend to get better, and that's
mhm,
a big carrot for me in sticking around and also in keeping my act together because if I keep my act together, there's a chance that maybe the other people around me will get better too. And at a certain point, if I'm working at it, I realize that it's not just about me. It's my actions have a consequence to other people.
Absolutely. Like what we know about recovery, when Bill Wilson met Bob Smith, Bill Wilson wasn't going to save Bob Smith. He didn't know who he was. He
right.
was going to save his own ass, right? Like he was thirsty and he was in a bad
Mhm, mhm,
situation, which he thought
mhm,
might not work out well. And he knew that when he was like that, the only relief that came to him was helping another, was connecting with another suffering person. And Bob didn't stay sober after that conversation, but Bill Wilson did. And of course,
mhm,
Bob would get sober and carry the message to, more than we can imagine. And Bill Wilson heard it from someone else. He felt hope when Ebby Thatcher came to visit him. Like,
mhm,
Ebby's sober?
mhm,
Wow, right? And that sort of, you know, recovery doesn't happen in a book, although books will help, or in a treatment center, although treatment is important. It happens in a community.
Yes, it does. I'd love this talk about us all walking around being contagious. It's like it's because I it makes so much sense, and it reminds me. I just want to make this recommendation to anybody listening, and to you two guys. If you haven't read this book called Infectious Generosity by Chris Allen, Chris Anderson, who started TED Talks. It's
Yeah.
like I got it. I got the audio on infectious generosity, and I thought, how simplistic can this be? I mean, I couldn't imagine myself listening to the whole thing. But talk about a contagion. It's like it got me right away, and I listened through that stuff, and it is such an inspiring book. I encourage everybody, infectious generosity, and it's like. I mean, I could go on and on about it. All I'll do is just recommend it today. But it remind you guys brought that back up for me when you started talking about the contagious part, because I like that in the midst of our old pandemic fears and everything. That the upside of contagion is, what do? We get together and try to infect each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say we should have done that episode in 2020.
It's like, come over here and
Um,
breathe on me. Hey, why don't you sneeze on me, man? I could use some of that stuff. It's like,
yeah, well, emotional sobriety being, you're taking care of yourself without excluding the needs of other people, and then you're taking care of other people without excluding your own needs. But
Yeah.
then the chime component, it just kind of deepens all of that, or it kind of like
mhm,
suffuses it. I think a lot about my sponsee, and I think that he's really nailing the connection and hope right now. But I think the identity, meaning, empowerment are works in progress. I mean, all these things are works in progress for any of
Yeah.
us.
mhm,
I'm always trying to think of like, how can I help foster those things in him? It's the glue that keeps us doing this. I feel like
mhm.
this chime model, these are just things to be aware of when any of these are slipping away. That can be kind of like
Right.
a good alarm bell, right?
Well, that's a good way to think about any of these acronyms or these models and stuff like that. There's these touchstones. There are these
Yeah.
places where, I mean, it's when I wrote Embracing Fear, my editor at HarperCollins, said let's use an acronym, and I hate acronyms. I can never remember what an acronym means and anything like that. So I first of all suggested to him the one I love the most, which was "fuck everything and run" for fear. It's like he thought, he said that's not quite it. The acronym is not a thing in and of itself. It's just no, it's just a touchstone. It's just a way. It's a memory technique. You said something that made me think of this. I'm working with a client fairly early in recovery. I mean, he's looking ahead, and he's got a rough resume there of what he's been up to. And one of the things that we were in a conversation, he was talking about, he's indicated, and I actually introduced it. I asked him at one point if he had ever thought about doing this, being a counselor, because sometimes you just meet somebody even early on, you're going to go like, hey, they got it, they don't have to use it, but and so anyway, I just want to bring this part, but part of that conversation got to the place where I was pointing out to him the one place where his multiple relapses and treatment programs and his time in jail would look good on his resume is looking for a counselor job in this business. It's like, somebody can look at that, because I remember being in places where we were hiring people in agencies. You find somebody who's been way down there, and who knows what it's like to really be resistant and fight back and stuff like that. Those guys make the best counselors in the world. They're, first of all, they're the most patient people in the world, and in my experience, and you basically you can't really float much by them. So anyway, I was telling them, I said, "Don, we can actually get jail on your resume and make it look good."
Same people who study this, some of the statistics are someone who starts sobriety and knows at least one person in
Hmm.
recovery has a 27% better chance than a group that they don't know anybody in recovery
Yeah.
of sustainable recovery. And once we get to 5 years, we've got an 85% chance of never drinking again. And we can improve that
Hmm.
even more by staying
Yeah.
connected. right?
Yeah. No, it's interesting what you said about the first part because I'm in Nashville and I work out in Nashville, and so a lot of my clients are and I don't think the music business has a corner on this market, but we
Yeah.
certainly have a lot of it. And it's like one of the nicest things is because I was around when the very brave, I think very courageous Larry Gatlin came forward. I can't remember when it was, but he acknowledged his cocaine addiction before nobody did that. And
Yeah.
nobody did it. And he came out here in Nashville and did this. And he told about being looking. I mean, this was really part of the story. Dropping his cocaine and trying to dig it out of shag carpeting. It's
Yeah.
like you can imagine that. It's like, oh my God.
It's
But I
it's
mean,
there.
and
It's there somewhere. Yeah.
yeah, and this was the first one I ever knew of it. Nowadays people, lots of people talk about going into recovery. But one of the nice things I love about being in it now and around Nashville is when I find somebody that go and working with somebody, and rather than feeling like in the old days, like I needed to go get the AA calendar out and figure out what they need, wherever they need to be, I just ask the question, I don't even ask, do you know? I say, who do you know that is in recovery from addiction? And they
Amazing.
always know somebody.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they've been staying away from that person,
Yeah.
but it's like it's so much more helpful. I love that statistic because if they can go in with a friend, you
Yeah.
know, and I just remember the first time I ever went to AA for myself. I was already a counselor, so I went to help those other people. But when I
Thanks,
actually
Tom.
showed up, yeah, well, it's just what I do, Joe. I remember, man, that's a scary fucking thing walking into that first meeting.
Yeah.
The meaning and identity portions, those are the tough ones for me. Because
Hmm.
empowerment seems to follow all those others, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
if you corral them together, you will be empowered. You know how you're in different parts of your life and you start to sense recurring themes, and you like see five people in a week, and each person will kind of be expressing some strain of the same thing. Like I just feel
Hmm.
like this has been the week where I've been thinking about, and then I'm seeing reflected people at different kind of career crossroads, relationship crossroads. Like, what exactly am I doing here? What's the project?
Hmm.
And not really knowing the answer. And of course, these things are all unfolding. But yeah, what can you tell me about that Savannah workshop and the identity and meaning parts of
Well,
it?
I look at you and I say emotional sobriety podcast, how
Hmm.
your sense of identity has changed from the beginning till now, like live in front of everybody. The
Hmm.
meaning you get from the Thursday night meetings, from doing the podcast, uh, I think it's added value to your life. You're good at it. The world needs it, right? You love it. Um, and that's where we get our meaning from, right?
Hmm.
Like you're anyone listening would go, "What? Huh?"
Yeah.
Because they've been following you, seeing
Uh,
your identity blossom and you expressing the gratitude, like meaning and gratitude, kind of
mhm.
go hand in hand, don't they? When we have a
Well,
life that matters.
listen to what other people say about you because I don't have any problem identifying you, and I don't have any problem seeing meaning in what you're doing. And I'm not saying, that doesn't mean you don't have work to do in those areas.
And look at anybody else in this process who has been introduced to emotional sobriety and it's become part of their identity now
Yeah.
and added a whole level of meaning to their life that wasn't there before.
I feel like it's just coming up for me naturally after hanging around you guys and Alan for long enough. Recently, I've had a couple of visitors to the desert where I live, and it's starting to get hot, so it's starting to get pretty inhospitable outdoors. And you gotta like there's strategies and stuff for kind of like existing in that environment. Go see Dune. You learn everything about it. Just kidding.
Mhm.
You get the critique from people sometimes. It kind of sucks. Like it's rough out there, and in the case of my girlfriend, it's like we're walking the dogs, and we gotta like be vigilant at all times, lest a coyote kind of jump out or like, some little sticker. A different version of me would take that pretty personally. It's like, oh, well, my environment sucks, so I suck. But that's just, that's that person's opinion. It's no reflection on me, or it doesn't need to be. I can find the value in this place that I'm in.
I love it. You
And
go, hey man, that's between you and the desert.
yeah, take it up with
That's nothing to do with me, man.
right.
I just work here.
Anyway, I don't know if
This
that's
is good. I love this
apropos of
conversation.
anything.
It's apropos of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Something.
something always. Patrick, I was talking to you recently that basically sometimes when we're in sort of educational mode in this stuff, it's like one of the things I miss the most is just things that feel more just spontaneous and conversational. And this has certainly felt like one of those conversations, those episodes today. So I appreciate you both.
Oh, it's great to be back. You know,
I love
like
you. I love you, Joe, and I love you being here. It's yeah, you just belong here. You're a part of us.
Hey,
yeah.
Joe, if and I'm not referring to anybody specific, if I ever wanted to direct a friend of mine to talk to somebody about recovery matters, do I have your permission to give them your email or?
Oh yeah, yeah. I am like available. Like Tom, I put my phone number in the books I write, the book I
That's
wrote.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. Well, you would if you yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I just can't like I think about that sometimes. I'm like I just can't think of like a safer space for somebody that's really struggling with that kind of thing than, to be in conversation with you about it. And that's not the same as saying that you would sugarcoat a damn thing. It's just that you have a very gentle way of articulating these concepts to people in a way that's not intimidating and can be kind of inspiring. So
Well, Tom was talking about the polarization as opposed to, like an ever-growing identity. And, there's this primacy of the 12-step approach where these five characteristics of CHIME appear in everything. We're part of a larger community and we're all thriving in the same way. And the polarization between harm reduction and abstinence-based recovery or
Yeah,
medically assisted recovery. Let's, stop that if we can, right? Like we're
right.
all here trying to improve. None of us have got it perfect, right? We're all learning from each other. And why would we want a smaller community instead
Right.
of a larger community to draw upon? So yeah, why would I say no to someone who wanted to call me and talk about this stuff? Because damn it, I'm going to learn something.
hmm.
That's right. Well, and what you're saying, I love that. I don't think we can emphasize that enough. That we're well, what we're all having in common is everybody's looking for what works for, and what works for and the three of us sitting here, we can go like we could talk all day long on the things that if we were doing Venn diagrams of ourselves that were where our intersections were that we have. Oh yeah, we all got that. I got that. But if we really got to, as we get to, and we'll do that as we get to know each other, we'll find that no, there are some things for each of us that are very unique to us. Not in this. Oh, Joe doesn't have that in common with me, and Patrick doesn't have that in common with me. But in these relationships, what I know is you're not gonna diss that because you don't have that identification.
Right.
You're gonna learn from it. You're gonna go,
Yeah.
oh, I never, one of those again. I never thought of that.
All right,
Love you
guys.
guys.
Yeah, love you too.
I look forward to listening next week. I'll be there in spirit.
Change your life, change your myth, cultivate your narrative with whomever you